Life and death are close companions in an Eden called Costa Rica. Despite the constant threat of danger, a wealth of creatures flourish here, sustained by the bounty of land and sea, and buoyed by the unrelenting struggle for survival. This is wild Costa Rica. Nestled in the tropics of Central America, Costa Rica calls itself the land of pura vida, pure life. For thousands of years, olive ridley sea turtles have migrated to this beach on Costa Rica's Pacific shore. They've come from oceans near and far in massive numbers. Often in December, 100,000 turtles crawl ashore in a week. At sea, the olive ridleys lead solitary lives. And exactly what triggers their annual migration remains a mystery. Their purpose, however, is clear. The phenomenon is known as the arribada, the arrival. And for many creatures, it means a long-awaited feast. Each turtle remains on land for barely an hour, carefully digging a nest for the next generation. This 100-pound female ridley lays about 100 eggs, dropping them 2 at a time. But only a handful at most will survive their first few days of life. The strategy of the arribada is synchronized nesting. Enough turtles lay enough eggs that enough hatchlings will survive to continue this ancient cycle. Her labor is done, and she heads for the sea as quickly as she can. She may not return here for a year. The vultures are more than observers and know the turtles well. The eggs these females have left behind will provide a rich meal. Wood storks soon join the feast. As some turtles leave, others arrive. The arribada lasts for a week. At the edge of the beach, a coati patiently waits for his meal to be delivered into the sand. Relatives of raccoons, Costa Rican coatis find turtle eggs a delicacy. They do not want to share. Each egg is a prize and jealously guarded. Costa Rica means rich coast, named by explorers hoping to find gold. Little gold was discovered, but many other natural riches remain. Between the shoreline and the forest, there lies another special realm. It is a mangrove forest estuary where crocodiles reside. Here in the Ostional wilderness, crocodiles grow up to 17 feet long, and as adults have no natural enemies. Most of their time is spent in the water, but they often sunbathe on the shore. If crocs get too warm, they simply open their mouths to release excess heat. It's breeding season, and a large male asserts his dominance over the rest of the group. The raised head of a female signals submission to his rule. It is also a part of courtship. Slapping the water and raising the tail lets other males know who's in charge. The female signals that she is receptive, and the reptilian courtship slowly begins. To arouse his mate, the male blows bubbles. then raises his tail to show off his massive size. The female echoes her partner's advances. More bubbles are offered back, and soon they will mate underwater. Capuchin monkeys forage from the forest floor to the canopy above, eating anything they can find. Insects, eggs, lizards, frogs, just about anything is fair game. The ripe fruit of a palm tree is on the menu today, a boon for the ever-hungry troop. The monkeys travel a mile or two through the forest each day, searching for new sources of food. An unwary mother squirrel leaves the nest to find her family a meal, and the capuchin don't hesitate to exploit the opportunity to devour her babies. Meat is prized among capuchins, and this dominant male has his fill. Crocs are also strategic consumers. And what they hunt depends on their age and size. This young croc has caught a blue crab and gulps it down before a larger croc can take it away. In this pristine forest, success and failure, life and death are frighteningly unpredictable. Survival here is the luck of the draw. A Tenosaur lizard spots its prey. It's ready to strike, but so are the army ants. Swarming through the forest 1,000,000 strong, little stands in their way. As they charge on relentlessly, creatures are driven in front of the raid. Other predators wait in anticipation. In the face of constant danger, strange relationships evolve. Hence, the acacia tree and the ants who make it their home. Unlike the marauding army ants, acacia ants keep permanent quarters inside the tree's hollow thorns. The acacia tree also sustains the ants with nectar-secreting glands that grow on its stems. The colony thrives on the sweet, rich nectar, and in exchange for food and shelter, the ants patrol the tree for any creatures who may dare to devour its leaves. Using their powerful jaws, acacia ants will attack any intruder, no matter its size. Once the alarm is sounded, more ants rush to help repel the uninvited house guest. In the rainforests of Costa Rica, ants have few predators, but one creature is an accomplished ant killer: the poison dart frog. These deadly amphibians come in a variety of bright, bold colors, which warn their own predators of the presence of complex poisons in their skin. Ants are one of their favorite meals. It is believed that the frogs acquire the toxins that protect them from their diet of ants. As night falls on the forest, a whole new pattern of life unfolds. Protected by the darkness from predators, billions of insects begin to feed. Chief among them are caterpillars, voracious consumers of leaves. Their seemingly boundless appetites pose a threat to many plants. So to limit the damage hungry mouths can inflict, plants wage chemical warfare by producing potent toxins such as cyanide and strychnine. In response, many caterpillars have developed the ability to detoxify the chemicals they swallow and excrete them for their own defense. As a result, certain caterpillars feed only on plants they have a tolerance for. Bats serve the forest by eating insects and pollinating its plants. Short-tailed leaf-nosed bats gather nectar from night-blooming flowers and in the process spread pollen from plant to plant. Fallen fruit exudes a pungent aroma that attracts the bat. Seeds that are swallowed during the meal are dispersed into the forest and have a chance to grow. A three-wattled bellbird calls for a mate. Cloud forest covers the tops of Costa Rica's mountains. Driven by trade winds from the Caribbean, clouds sweep over the mountains, bathing the forest in constant moisture. The cloud forest is a land of gnarled trees covered with orchids. And in this warm, humid atmosphere reside some of the world's most exotic creatures. More than 50 species of hummingbirds make the forest their home, feeding themselves on the nectar they sip from flowers. Deemed the most beautiful bird of the New World, the resplendent quetzal is likely the most famous inhabitant here. A mating pair raise their young in a cavity nest during the spring breeding season. The ornately feathered male makes regular deliveries of wild avocado to his mate and two hatchlings inside. Nearby, infant hummingbirds sit perched in their tiny nests, awaiting a meal of nectar from their mother. This ripe fig tree provides a feast for a range of forest birds. The birds will disperse fig seeds throughout the forest, also benefiting the tree. Fruit dropped from the tree will provide a good meal for a family of coatis, who will also disperse the seeds. Soon, other creatures are drawn by the smell of ripe figs. And the smell of a rat draws a boa. Holding the rat in its sharp teeth, the snake constricts and suffocates its prey. Before eating it whole. Howler monkeys are strictly vegetarian and spend much of their time digesting leaves and communicating the boundaries of their turf. The most abundant monkey in Costa Rica, howlers live in troops that methodically graze the canopy for food. They are extremely selective, eating only the best parts of certain trees to maximize their protein intake. Tennosaur lizards share their affinity for the blossoms of yellow cortez, a delicacy when it's in bloom. With such an abundance of flowers, sharing is never an issue. Below, on the forest floor, trouble is brewing. Meet the Hercules beetle, the largest beetle in Central America and the strongest insect on Earth. Another male has invaded his territory, and that usually means a fight. At half a foot long and weighing in at 2 ounces, the contenders are evenly matched. The challenger moves closer. The defender tries to intimidate by displaying his massive horns. Undaunted, the challenger moves into fighting range and engages the defender. The challenger has lost his bid for power, vanquished until he is ready for a rematch. Living in Costa Rica's Pacific lowland forests, the squirrel monkey is one of the liveliest creatures in Central America. Squirrel monkeys are highly vulnerable due to habitat loss, but here they thrive in small, isolated populations. Thanks to their modest size, they move swiftly on slender branches, hunting succulent insects like the giant red-winged grasshopper. The 9-inch-long grasshopper is not an easy catch, but it makes a nutritious meal. young squirrel monkeys, playing teaches them the skills they'll need to hunt on their own one day. For now, they're happy to tumble in the jungle, living la pura vida. Trade winds ensure rainfall is nearly consistent and abundant over much of Costa Rica. In the tropical rainforest of the southern Pacific lowlands, a staggering 150 inches of rain may fall each year. The creatures who live here are well adapted and used to a good soaking. Moisture especially suits the turtle, as he enjoys a delicious ripe fruit. If the rain shower becomes a deluge, he merely retreats inside. For other creatures, the cool rain brings welcome relief from the heat. In the wet mangrove forests near the sea, new life will learn the lessons of survival in this lush but unforgiving place. For this baby croc, the mangrove's still waters and abundant food make an ideal place to live and hunt. When snapping at fish in deep water doesn't result in a catch, the young croc moves to the shallows near the shore, where fishing is easier. Its first strike yields a stone. Good practice, but not a meal. Finally, success. But if he is to survive, the young croc will need many more successes. Only 1 out of 10 newborn crocs manage to reach adulthood. Another chance for a meal, and an opportunity to practice his hunting skills. The problem now is keeping the catch away from other young crocs. this youngster is learning quickly. The mangrove tree itself survives and flourishes here by adapting to its challenging environment. Prop roots are not a one-trick pony. Not only do they anchor trees and provide stability in shifting sands, wind, and tides, but they also tolerate immersion in salt water, deliver oxygen to the leaves, and trap sediment to create muddy soil that is home to many creatures, including the fiddler crab. Above their mangrove mud burrows, fiddler crabs proudly wave their huge claw to advertise their claim to the territory. But when the tide comes in, they quickly retreat. As a nursery, shelter, and habitat, the mangrove forest is a vital link in the complex web of life here. In the forests surrounding the mangrove dwells one of Costa Rica's most secretive creatures. The black vulture. Mom has 2 chicks to feed, and satisfying their appetites requires constant work. By poking their heads down her throat, the chicks prompt their mother to regurgitate the food she has found for them. With one meal delivered, it's time to search for the next. Black vultures cannot find food by smell. It is mainly with their sharp eyes that they locate their meals. And the vulture's nesting and raising of chicks conveniently overlaps with the hatching of baby turtles. After 50 days of incubation, the surviving eggs emerge as baby olive ridley turtles. Now, their only goal is to reach the ocean before a hungry predator reaches them. The hatchlings usually emerge at night when they are harder to see. These unfortunate babies are making their journey during the day, which stacks the odds against them. Only 1.5 inches long, there is little the babies can do to defend themselves. For the ghost crab, a hatchling provides an irresistible meal. Hungry black vultures also wait for their chance at an easy feast. The wood storks join in the feeding frenzy. The key to the olive ridley's survival is mass synchronized hatching. So many turtles emerge at once that the predators glut themselves, but still thousands more turtles will hatch through the day and night. For every 100 turtles hatched, only a few may survive their first days of life, and will soon face a whole new set of challenges, beginning with their journey through the surf. With luck, in 15 years, this turtle will return to the beach where it was born and lay its own eggs in the annual arribada. Like all sea turtles, the olive ridley faces many dangers. Fishing nets, poaching, and people threaten its survival more than all its natural predators combined. But with its commitment to conservation, Costa Rica fights to remain a paradise of pure life for all its wondrous creatures.